Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and I am delighted to have the beautiful Sharon from Have a Chat with Sharon here today with us. So, Sharon is an Australian and internationally trained systematic and structural constellation facilitator and an accredited life coach. She started her career as a high school teacher and became a farmhand at 30, and then moved into community services work in mental health and community finance in her later years. Sharon has now established her creative healing space through her own business, Have a Chat with Sharon. So a big welcome, Sharon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for bringing me on board tonight.
I'm so excited. So I guess let's unpack, first of all, what is a systematic and structural constellation facilitator?
Okay, nothing like starting nice and easy.
Yes.
It's one of those things that's not the easiest to understand, but if you break the two words up, so think of the word systemic and use it as the word system. So meaning any system or group that you may belong to. So your first system is your body. Your body is a whole system mechanism that works, and you don't have to think about it a lot. It just operates, which is really lovely. And then we have our family of origin. So that's a system, that's a group. So you could belong to a dance group, a choir, anything, you go to the workplace, that's a group of people. So that's system. And that just goes out to systemic, and then a constellation. And think about looking up into the sky and seeing the stars and the constellations that create these beautiful patterns in the sky above. And so when we talk about constellation, it's looking at patterns and how they form and how they can form in our life, and things can happen like over and over again. It's not like the same thing, but it's kind of like a theme that runs through. But not only just our own life, but it could be, from generation to generation, the same type of thing just keeps happening. So when you take the word systemic constellation, it looks at the systems we belong to and the patterns that may continue to show up time and time again within those groups or within our own life.
Yeah, and I feel when people understand that definition and actually start to look back at their own life, you can start to see those moments. I know, especially as a parent, when I go, oh, my mum used to do that and I never liked that, and I'm doing it to my own child, or, dad used to say that and now I'm saying it even though that's not me. So I guess that's where those patterns start to come in, right?
Absolutely. And it can go into anything like, money issues. It's like, every time I get a few bucks in the bank and I've got a bit of savings, something breaks down and there goes my little fund of money again. And it just seems to, you can never get ahead because it just seems these things seem to keep reoccurring. That kind of issue may not have just started with you. You may have found that, your parents had a similar type of issue with finances, and then their parents could have had the same type of thing. So it kind of can run through systems. So, yeah.
And how did you find this work, like this family constellation work, and how did you stumble into it?
Oh, stumbling was the ultimate word. About 4 years ago, I was just listening to a podcast on the internet, and this woman was talking about reoccurring patterns, and it was like a light bulb just went on inside of me, and all my life I've kind of known that things just seem to show up time and time again, and these patterns. And I was just mesmerised by this woman talking about patterns, and that, looking at patterns and healing ongoing patterns of, traumas or whatever in people's lives, it blew me away. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's this thing and it's got a name and it's really weird, systemic constellations, and I have no idea. And she was over the other side of the world, and yeah, so that started me on my journey, and it's been ongoing since then.
And don't you love when the universe leaves you little breadcrumbs to not only heal yourself, but then be able to do it for other people as well?
Absolutely. Well, it literally took me to the other side of the world. Here I was sitting in, Sydney, Australia, and I thought, I've got to find this stuff. And not being so good on the internet, I managed to track down this woman in Orlando, Florida, and it was like, well, and I'm going, oh my goodness, I've got to see this for myself to see if it's real. And so 10 months after first hearing her, took me over to Florida because she was doing a workshop at Disneyland, of all places. So I ended up being delayed by a certain hurricane, but finally made it to the end of the 4-day intensive. And, I just walked into the room, was there probably an hour, and I knew my foot had been placed on a path that now, 3.5 years later, I've spent, 12 months in an intensive study program here in Australia, and have also travelled overseas to be part of trainings internationally. So, yeah, it's incredible. The journey has been amazing, yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I love that you had to go through a hurricane, which if anyone's listening now in Florida too, it's very much echoing, again, another pattern, right? And,
Absolutely.
And just that you have to go meet Mickey Mouse at the same time.
And it would have been this time 4 years ago that I took the journey. I think it was that, I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never ever thought I'd end up in Disneyland, but it was an incredible experience. So yeah.
And I almost love the symbolism in that it's about touching into your inner child as well.
Yeah. The lady who does it, she has just such an affinity with Disneyland, and that, kind of you can really step into a new life and a freedom, and be healed and released from age-old patterns that you don't have to carry forward. So it's like that real miraculous Disney sense. And that's one of the main reasons she does her big event there each year, because it's like it's that essence of freedom and moving forward.
And magic, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it truly is magic, for sure.
And what do you find when you start to help, like, your clients and yourself? What did you find when you start to see these patterns? What changes kind of transversed?
Wow. Look, it is the most unique work I have ever seen. Like my whole life, it's as if, I've been called spiritually, to do something to shift my own life, my own
Patterns.
Yeah. Yes. There's quite a few of those. But to make changes and to hear the call and just know for me that my life is bigger than me, that there's more that I can do here in this lifetime, that is more than just being for me or about me, that I can journey with others and changes evolve in their lives as they journey towards freedom, that it has little to do with me. It's like I open the space, hold the space, allow that person the ability just to be present and safe in an environment that they can grow in understanding about what's been going on for them and all the entanglements that may be a part of it, and to start to unknot the hurdles that have, been blocking their path to freedom all this time in their life and the lives of their families. Because this work is bigger than just the individual. It's like throwing a stone into a pond and you see the ripples out. So when you talk about systems, one person who, willingly or kind of is just driven to heal, to want different for themselves, when they say yes and put their hand up and go, okay, something's got to change, I'll do something about it, they throw that pebble in the pond and it ripples out. So they bring healing to themselves and to their whole system. They're, back working with their ancestors and going forward into the future generations. Things don't have to stay the same. Things can change, and things do change. And that's the miracle of this work, to see people change, and they kind of don't understand it, but they go, something's different, and that's celebration, because that's, the outcome. It's like working with mental health, because it can't often be seen. We know that people struggle with, depression, but it's not like a broken bone. You can't really see it. But when you actually work with a person and they become aware of what's triggering their depression or what's triggering their, ongoing troubles, it's like understanding, acknowledging, kind of accepting and moving on. It's like, the whole system shifts, allowing that person to open up and choose differently for themselves.
Yeah, and I find when I work with clients too, the amount of people, when you say to them, you chose your parents and you chose this path and you chose, to be here and change, and they look at you like, no, I didn't. Why would I choose this? And you think, well, because your soul has some journeying to do. We're not going from A to Z without skipping the middle. But at the same time, it's about learning that you have the power and empowering, which I love that you create that space for people, Sharon, because when you realize that when you heal things with you, you can heal things from 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. Like, it's so powerful.
And it really is, and it's hard sometimes to think that, when there has been, great trauma in families, or for people who have never known their parents or their biological family, that they go, well, how? I've never known these people. How can I heal anything? I don't know. But our body holds it. Our body holds all our memories, our nervous system. It's all there. It's like you know in your gut, and your gut has all these answers, because you're feeling. You feel it. It's like when we say, I could cut the air with a knife. You walk into a room and the energy was just electric. We're feeling all the time. We just don't acknowledge or just stop long enough to really listen to what our body is telling us. And we know, it's like deep down in our gut, the answers. We kind of have always sensed it or known it, but sometimes we don't want to acknowledge it. Sometimes it's all too painful. And, it's just taking that, step by step, or, sometimes it's like a giant leap within seconds, like the unconscious becomes conscious, and it's once again, all I can do it is liken it to that knot, in a piece of rope. Undo the knot and energy can flow freely along the piece of rope, and that's a long, and within a whole system.
Yeah, and I feel too like when you recognize the pattern, that's what gives you the power, and you can't step out of it necessarily straight away. Sometimes you need a few goes, but the universe is also very good at repeating things for us in case we miss the lesson the first time. So especially relationships, like you keep ending up with the same sort of type of person that's not helping you grow as a person, and then it's when you step back and go, oh, maybe it's not them, it's me. Maybe there's something there, that then you can have that aha moment, and start to break those patterns.
But also, with constellation work, there are three main principles upon which it's based. First is around belonging. We all want to belong, and we will do anything to belong. You think of, like, we hear people will join gangs, and to become part of a gang member, you have to do some crime or
an initiation,
someone, or but it doesn't have to be that violent or whatever. But like, just think of kids wanting to be part of a group at school. I remember in primary school, the good-looking girls would all play. Now, this is going to show my age, I'm afraid, but they were Charlie's Angels, and they were pretty, and they got the parts of the angels, and of course I was Bosley. But I was willing to play Bosley because it was like I got to be part of the cool group of kids. So not quite an angel, but Bosley was quite necessary. So we do anything to belong. And sometimes that leads to risk-taking. Sometimes that ends up we sacrifice ourselves. The second principle is around give and take, and the balance of that. We find many people can give and give and give and give, but they're unable to receive. Or there are those that will take and take and take and, not give in return. So bringing equilibrium and balance into a person's life and into relationships is really important, and one of the main things that we look at when working with constellations. And the third one is order. Is that families, or whatever system you're dealing with, whether it's the workplace or whatever, is that everyone has their place, and that, there's an acceptance of that place. I've been in quite a few employment situations where I found the boss not to be quite as skilled as I would have liked them to be, and I've kind of usurped their power a lot or undermined them, because I thought I knew better. And we see that in families a lot. My parents did the best they could, but me being the audacious child I was, I tended to take control a lot, and I ended up parenting my parents, and I was out of order. It meant I never got to be the little one. I never got to have the childhood that kids deserve, because I was too busy trying to adult the adults. And I have to own that. But you don't realise that when you're a young person and you see your parents struggle and you just want to try and, save them. So we fall into this a little bit. So yeah, the three pillars, it's around belonging, give and take, and order. And so when we work with people in their systems, it's trying like putting the family back together in that way, putting the system back into order, and where people have been excluded in the family, where they've been forgotten, where children have passed early and have not been remembered. You'll find that people will remember later on in future generations, and they may mourn for that person who's missing, and not even realise why they're grieving so badly. And it can affect us in many ways. And for myself personally, I had my great-grandmother lost 5 children, and 5 baby boys. And, I found that in my own life, kind of that affected me greatly, and yet that was my great-grandmother. I always had this sense of grief around, losing people. And also, my own grandfather, was in an unmarked grave, and, he was excluded from the family because he wasn't a really nice bloke. So, but those that are excluded will keep showing up until they're remembered. And it's the word remembered back into the family system. And it's, we don't have to, accept poor behaviour. We just have to acknowledge that they existed, that they had their place, they played their part in, our family system, and we make the system whole again so that generation after generation things don't have to continue to play out whilst the system tries to remember.
Yeah, and I find too, from an energy standpoint, those past family members and sisters that have gone through trauma, they're kind of in a holding pattern until someone acknowledges it, because it's just going to keep getting passed down through that DNA memory and that energy in the cells until someone actually pulls it apart. So what you're doing is so powerful, because it's actually saying, hey, let's look at to what is, causing this and creating this pattern and this system in our life.
Exactly. And how many families have the skeletons in the closet? Those that aren't spoken of, the things that weren't allowed to be spoken of in generations past. They didn't acknowledge, pregnancy outside of marriage. They didn't talk about mental health issues. People return from world wars and there was never any assistance. PTSD was unknown, unheard of, unacknowledged. And yet you had, people broken, returning from war, just expected to get back into life and get on with it. What happened behind closed doors for so many families, you'll find, kind of there so much domestic violence, abuse of alcohol, and other drugs. It was like there is so much that is hidden, that isn't spoken about, isn't acknowledged, and yet it will keep turning up until someone says enough. Enough now. It happened to me, it happened to my parents, it will not happen to my children. And that is the person, the agent of change. And it really is a strong individual who can stand up and say enough. And it usually takes us a long time to get there. Although it amazes me how, young people, because I'm showing my age again, really are fast-tracking healing, because the awareness is just so much more, abundant now that I'm seeing than it was when I was in my 20s. So yeah, it's
Well,
The world is shifting, the energy is shifting.
Yeah, and the timelines
The
are sped up.
consciousness is shifting.
Yeah, and the timelines are sped up. So if anyone's listening and is considering doing some healing, just do it, because instead of taking 6 months to get over a heartbreak, it might only take you a month. And it's not meaning that you're heartless or anything like that. It's just that energy in the earth at the moment is supporting that healing and moving through a lot quicker. So it's really powerful, and something that you can capitalize on if you choose to.
Absolutely. And people all around the world are gathering, just all getting together one moment in time around the world and meditating all together, from their bedrooms. It's like there is this collective consciousness, and Constellation plays a part in that as well, where, kind of the earth itself requires healing, and when people of like mind are consciously aware of how we can shift and change the energies on a collective level. The land can change, the energy can change, and we can change, global impact, whether it be war, whether it be genocide, whether it be, catastrophic events like 9/11, that leads to mass effects to people and, the generations to come. And people are working. People are, at that collective level, are really working together, to heal, to bring healing.
Yeah, and there's been so many studies now as well of like the power of prayer, which is meditating, or it's whatever you want to call it, but prayer is a form of meditation. And they've done all these studies to show that if all a group of people all concentrate their energy on the one thing, they can heal people, and they can heal situations, and they can lead to massive changes. Even just this morning, I got an email from a person I follow, and she's in Florida, and she actually led a massive prayer meditation group yesterday, and her warning of flood actually disappeared within 24 hours. And so that was I thought that was a really powerful example of that collective consciousness and tapping into that system of being all connected and using that power that we have within us.
Look, and what I suppose encountered personally, when you're seeing at that global level when, like-minded people in the focus and that heart space, that sharing of heart energy, and, uniting together in peaceful harmony, it can be electric. And with Constellation work, it is amazing the shifts and changes and how suddenly they can happen. There I was over in Florida, getting my first ever constellation, and of course it had to be about my relationship with my mother.
It's normally your mum or your dad.
Interesting journey in itself.
Yeah.
And then, kind of, there I was over in Florida, and she was in Sydney. And when I left for Florida, she had not recognised me for 5 months. When I got back from Florida a week later, I walked into her room in the nursing home, and she said, "Sharon, is that you?" Now, I don't know. I didn't tell anyone that for quite a long time, because my brain was spinning, because no, it's just coincidence,
Yeah. Yeah. Your logic's trying to explain it away. Yeah.
There's no such thing as coincidence. But it was just, something can happen over the other side of the world, and we can be impacted here. So, we're never isolated, we're never alone, and whether it's good or, use the terms good or bad, but, it is affecting everyone. So, yeah, for good or bad, kind of thing.
And I feel like I was talking to someone the other day and she had like a healing massage, and I said, oh, how was it? And she said, I don't know. She goes, I can tell you that because I don't know. I'm still processing it. But what this massage kind of brought up for her was all kind of her boundaries and things. And then on the way home, she usually, when she has to drive a lot, she calls people. And she called her mum, and it was only when she was talking to me about it that she realised what had happened. And she called her mum and just pretty much laid it all on the table. And then all of a sudden, her mum was actually invested in how she was. It wasn't like, oh, just a superficial, how are you? It was like, no, I'm actually really interested in what you're doing. And she was like, whoa, and it's just that, it's like you said, it's that moment where you think, no, surely it's not from that, like...
Yeah, and you just go, the wonders of the universe, because it just, if you just try and rationalize it with your human mind, it just doesn't add up. That's one of the, I think, the most awesome things about constellation work is that people go, I don't know what's happened, but something's different, something's shifted, something's changed, and you go, yes. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful because, like, I just am in awe of how, beautiful this work is, because, it's like, just, in that way, prayer's being answered, because you just go, it works. Magic. I can't tell you how it works. It just does. And I always just come back to Carl Jung's quote, until you make the unconscious conscious, you'll be, you'll call it fate or something along those lines. I don't know. I just love it, because it's like, until you kind of know, it's like, you don't know. And when you know, you kind of go, right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have a beautiful example of that. So I often talk about the universe sending you signs or symbols and things to help you on your path. And I was going through this phase and I kept seeing owls everywhere. Like, I'd look up and there was an owl, like this beautiful owl wing in the clouds. And then I kept like thinking I heard owls even though there wasn't owls. And then I was standing in my kitchen window and I looked out and there was this log, and I actually did a double take. I thought there was an owl sitting on this log. And I asked my son, because his eyes are better than mine, and I'm like, is there an owl there? Is there an owl there? He goes, I don't think so, but it really looks like an owl. And then my husband, who's very logical, comes out and he's like, oh, that's just a piece of wood. And I'm like, but it looks like an owl. I have to look up what owls mean, and he's just like trying to explain it with logic and like, oh, it is what it is. Whereas I'm like, no, it's like magic, like this is clearly a sign for me. I need to go research what owls mean, so again, it's like realizing that that's there. Or, if you get stuck. I had another morning where my key wouldn't come out of the front door. It just wouldn't come out no matter what I did. And I was like there for a good 10 minutes and I just stopped and I went, okay, thank you for delaying me this morning. Clearly you don't want me leaving. And then my key came out of the door. And it was just, and people would say, oh, it was just ready to come out. But I'm like, no, it was clearly something bigger. It's just acknowledging that bigger plan or that bigger thing that's happening, and, and stepping back from that logical brain and trusting your intuition.
And that's it. And we all have it. We all have that beautiful gift of being able to, sense more than we give ourselves credit for.
Yep.
And, kind of, it's just part of who we are. And it's like listening to what our body is telling us. Like, it's like when people say, oh, no, I don't feel right. It's like you can't put your finger on it, but you just don't feel right. And so you take yourself off to the doctor and there it is. There's something there. It's like when we know, we kind of know, and then and that sets us on the path to try and find the answers. Yeah. Like, you have to find out what an owl meant, because it's like you know, like the universe will keep knocking.
Yeah.
Knocking, you know, generation after generation until someone says, okay, enough, and, you know, let's look at this. And, you know, one of the beautiful things about systemic constellation work is that it is not, it's not like going to a counsellor week in, week out, month after month, year after year. It is meant to be what's called a brief therapy, and that means that, you know, 2 sessions maybe on the same issue, and hopefully you've got shift and change.
Yeah.
You know, most of the things that, you know, I've had constellations for, it's all over and done in one session. It's not a thing. The shift that was necessary for, you know, whatever was needed after that occurred. And that's the beauty of it. So it's not like, you know, you kind of have to lock yourself into session after session. You know, it can be quite,
Quick.
not it's very deep work.
Yeah.
It can be very deep.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's like it's just you're waiting for, you know, we say, you know, one movement, and it could be a yawn, and it was like, okay, yeah, there you go, it's shifted. And you just go, is that all? I mean, you know, panicking about this hit of pain in my solar plexus for years. And I was like, okay, the body shifts. The nervous system releases it. You could be laughing hysterically, you know, it's like, sometimes laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
And the body will release as the body chooses to, kind of thing. And sometimes, you know, you can face your deepest, darkest, and it just is okay. You don't have to dwell in the
energy.
agony and upset.
Yeah.
You know, that's not necessary to heal. Absolutely not. It can be, you know, it can be a good cry is what we really need to do. And crying is healing.
Yeah.
Tears are beautiful to be able to release. But once the tears are cried, they're gone, you know, and the pain can be gone too.
That's it. And then often when people have that big emotional release, it's interesting to see what shifts they have actually in their body as well, because we store so much of this emotional tension in our organs, in our body parts. And when we have that release and that shift, it's like, oh, my shoulders stopped hurting, or my neck stopped hurting, or, you know, or, oh, all of a sudden I don't have a UTI anymore because I released that fear. You know, it's like, you know, this working on those patterns are more profound than people can realize.
Absolutely. And it's like become your own inner detective, you know. You know, I love it because you can just, you know, there's so many ways you can look at this work, and it's it is a mystery. It is, you know, it's like I have no idea why this keeps happening, or I have no idea why I feel like this. And pulling it apart, looking at it, and just going, right, now I get it. The unconscious becomes conscious, bang, you know, and it's not trying to trivialize it at all.
No.
You know, but understanding it's like just sometimes being able to put your finger on it, put a, you know, a label on it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and when, you know, our rational mind can when we can get our head around it, it's like, okay, all right. You know, that didn't belong to me, and then, you know, I can give it back with respect, and I can move on now.
Yeah.
And so, then there's the beauty, being able to move forward. We don't have to stay stuck.
No, I actually do. When you said give it back, I actually do a lovely exercise with the Ho'oponopono. I can never say it right. The Ho'oponopono ritual, which is often I'll get people visualizing or imagining, putting putting these things in a box and giving it back to that person with love and gratitude and forgiveness so that they can fully let it go. And, you know, it's such a simple but powerful practice because it's like, hang on, this isn't mine. I'm putting this down and I'm taking this heavy backpack off and I'm stepping forward in my path that I'm choosing now without this burden, without this weight that's not actually mine.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm sorry, I can't say that word either myself, but
No. Yes. There's so many no's.
It's the same work, just different terminology.
Yeah.
Ultimately, every healing is a shift in energy, and basically the aim is to heal.
Yeah.
Is the shift to change, and it's like systemic constellations will resonate with one person, not with another.
Yeah.
Or it might be for you today, and in 3 years' time, the person that didn't think much of it actually turns up and goes, oh, actually, let's have a look at that. Yeah. So, everyone who is, putting their hand up for change and healing, and all of the healers are all necessary.
Yep.
We are, every one of us has a place, and no matter the technique, as long as, and there's some, like dodgy dealers out there, but, anyone with the heart,
It's just about making a change, really, isn't it? It's about creating a space for people and helping empower people through your own healing and what's worked for you, because that is where you can really show that compassion for people because you've been there yourself.
Absolutely, and I don't think we can do the work unless we've experienced it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes about doctors, they should really have to go through some horrible things that they treat, because it's like, might be a little different. Because we gravitate towards that which calls to us.
Yeah.
And but ultimately, we're all on the same path. And like I said, this is individual. It's systemic. It's groups, and then it's global. People all around the world are looking to shift and change, and it's beautiful because we're all, no one is immune, and we all have those things that require assistance.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line.
Yeah, and and it's layered too. Like, you might have all these tools, and that's the other thing too. That's kind of why I started this podcast. Like you said, there's so many different ways that you can heal things and shift things, and something might resonate with you more than something else. And that's how you follow your gut and your intuition, and you see what gets pulled to. But then you might listen to this podcast again in a year's time, or stumble across it, or it starts playing, because that does happen sometimes. The universe will just start playing something on your Spotify or your podcast list, or you have no idea how it got there, and then it might resonate with you more then because you're ready, and that's part of your journey then. So I find the more that we know, the more things that we can research, and we're blessed in an age of the internet where we can go find people and do courses overseas if we want to, and it's about what resonates with you.
Absolutely, and it's just, I just find it also fascinating. I just, there's just so much, and there's so much beauty. I find so much beauty in it all. And I suppose one of the things I say about myself, it's like, I'm an eternal learner, and and that's one of the reasons I've come to we love life is because it's so vast.
Yeah.
And although we can, believe or think that we're separate or different, we really are all so interconnected, and we need each other. We really do need each other to get each other through, which there's such beauty in that.
Yeah, we're not here to do it alone. We're here to do it as a group. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. The old saying that takes a village to raise a child, it's like, and we all still have our inner child that could do with a village.
Exactly. Well, we're going to wrap up, Sharon. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing more into the constellation work that you're doing. It's so powerful and very much needed so that we can break patterns and move forward in our lives. So thank you so much for giving me the time to have this chat with you.
Thank you, and I really appreciate you asking me to come on board tonight. And thank you, and wishing you every success with your podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.